evening and welcome to Dog Talk. I'm Dan Camilleri and we all know Laura McKillop by now. I'd hope you do anyway. Firstly, we'd like to start tonight by thanking our sponsor of the Dog Talk Live Q&A, Enduro, high energy food for working dogs with real kangaroo meat. And
tonight we're lucky enough to be speaking with Dave Motley from Motley's Helpies, who will be picking what he thinks is the best question from our live viewers, and they'll win a bag of Enduro Plus. Hey Dave, how you going?
Hi guys, how are you?
Yeah, well, thank you. And yourself?
That's good. Yeah, good. Thank you.
That's good. Dave, just before we hook in tonight, just want to actually give our listeners out there or give ourselves a bit of a plug. If you guys notice that Laura and I actually have signed up to do one step forward with the Black Dog Institute, and we're just going to encourage as many people as we can to jump on board for a great cause. And if it's not talking with your wallets, how about you talk with your feet and get on board and put something together for a great cause.
So Dave, tell us a bit about yourself and your family, what you're from and what you do for work and stuff.
Yeah, well, just quickly on that, Dan, Jackie only spoke about that the other night, that we were going to sign up to that and have a bit of a family crack at that. So hopefully we can do our bit.
That's awesome. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I think it's a wonderful thing you guys have started. My family, Jackie's been married for sort of 20 years now, and she's a nurse manager in town, and I've been managing this block where I'm here for 18 years, sort of northwestern England, New South Wales, central New South Wales, and grew up Mudgee and, on a bit of a farm, and then went away when I left school to the Northern Territory and did a couple of years up there in Newcastle waters, working, big mobs of cattle up to 3,000 or 4,000 at times, and come back sort of south and worked on sheep places, and then got into dogs, and Eja Labra, assistant manager there, and then manager here now, and we've got a block at Brewarrina where we're running around 1,000 ewes, and so between this is about 15,000 sheep here now into the spring, and a couple of hundred cattle. So between that and our own, it sort of keeps us busy, and that's where the dogs come into it, I guess, looking after all those livestock.
Did you use dogs much when you were up north?
No, there was no dogs at all up there at that stage. We worked for a pretty solid head stockman. That there was some pretty strict rules written on the side of the caravan, and they were adhered to, rain, hail or shine. So no, we didn't. Everything was horseback, and it was very old-fashioned camp. And really, I don't think that, in our system, dogs would have been difficult. We just sort of weren't set up for dogs at that point.
Yeah, right. Like a few others we've spoken with before, mate, we've had a long association with horses. You've had a bit of association with horses yourself?
Yeah, look, I sort of started with horses with polo cross when I was probably 15, and played to a reasonably good level, I guess. The last of my polo cross breed of mares is actually with Sky Bradford now. She's hoping to make the Nationals in Albury in April. So that's sort of the last of that breed. And yeah, look, I was pretty passionate about my horses, and I just don't find the time now. The kids ride still in show jump now. So I got out of that sort of sporty type horse, and been chasing the kids around for the last 10 years through Pony Club and jumping, and they sort of jumped at Royals and done all the things that they need to as a parent. You sort of give up on your own gig and chase them around. But yeah, look, I was very passionate about that body language side of the horses, and which certainly comes over to the dogs, and how we operate. But I think they sort of are very different animals from the point of view that one's a predator, one's a prey animal, and a horse is sort of happy if he's got hay and his belly's full at the end of the day, whereas that dog's really driven and is driven by instinct and that want to sort of control something. So one can be, certainly with the horse, is probably more of a physical game at times, whereas the dogs are very much a mental battle, I think, and working around that.
Cool. You mentioned there you worked a couple of different, a lot of cattle and sheep there before. Mate, being out at Bree and out there in Western New South Wales, I imagine you do a bit of work as well.
Yeah, look, we're probably once a month putting 200 or 300 goats together. You know, we're not putting massive mobs, but yeah, there's not too many rules on goats. So we've got our goats pretty good now. So we're sort of taking the big end out of them. They handle quite well, but they test a dog for weaknesses and they test a human for weaknesses and strengths as well. You know, they really, yeah, they make you sharp and they really, you know, they sort of probably test that theory of dogs being perfect. A lot of the time I find rather than dogs be perfect, they've just got to get there. And I've certainly, you know, my dogs now are doing a lot more crossing than they would have once upon a time because they just need to, and that's my job. And I'm not doing a lot of trialing. So, yeah, goats are testing, but, you know, they also, it's a lot of stock handling, I guess, and you sort of learn to create the leader and leave them alone.
Have they influenced the older dog that you chase these days?
Oh, probably not. You know, I think you certainly want a dog that gets to the front. They've got to get to the head, but then, like a lot of these animals that are a little touchy, the less time you spend on the head, the better. So get on the head, get respect, and then get out of there as quick as you can. That's how I find it. But yeah, I want to sort of head back to a little bit more strength. You know, I've gone probably a little on the pretty side and that real archy sort of mobby dog, and I'm heading there a couple of crosses. And the beauty of dogs and breeding is that, you know, within 3 years you could be 2 or 3 generations down the track, can't you? Because of the speed you can breed dogs at.
Be quicker than horses, mate.
Yeah, well, that's right. You know, when did we sort of maybe 3 years ago now, I guess, and here we are, bought a pup off you, and here we are, we've got he's got grandchildren, hasn't he, as such? So
yeah, that's right.
That's how quickly it can go, and I guess that can take you in a good direction quickly, or it can take you in a poor direction quickly, and that just depends on making sure that you're working down the right track, doesn't it?
Let's hope it's the better of the two, right?
Well, hopefully, if it's a good track.
Time will tell. Anyways.
Yeah.
So, other than the goat work, how do dogs make your day-to-day life easier?
Oh, look, you know, this Western country here we are is full of burrs, and it's tough on dogs, and it's really hard. You know, I need to be able to go out in what is, you know, not massive paddocks, but reasonably big paddocks, around 30,000 acres here, and, you know, I need to be able to go out and do a job on my own. And there's no job that I can't do around the farm on my own, whether it be in yards or the paddock. And, you know, I've got to have a dog that's capable in the paddock. If I don't have anything here that's not capable in the paddock, and that has to be that way first for me. I've always said I want to be 70-30, 70 paddock and 30 yard. Yeah, the amount of yard work I do is not a hell of a lot, but I still need a dog that's capable in the yards. But I need a dog that can run to stock and that can cast and get around sheep that are pretty runny at times.
Yeah, right. So obviously, you just told us a bit about how dogs make your life easier, getting around and that. What drew you to the lines that you have to be able to do that work? Like, what stood you out when you first kicked off all that time ago?
Well, I started with an old Scanlon bitch, Manny, and she was the most natural casting little bitch ever. And I sort of just kicked off down that line, and, you know, I then put what was a dog was Capri Ledge over her, and he was probably a dog that was as good a dog still that I've seen. I think he was a beautiful, kind dog on stock, but he'd back rams in a race, you know, he'd cast, he did a bit of everything, and he's probably one that slipped through the cracks a little bit for Chris, but he was a good dog in that, you know, he didn't probably get a lot of pictures because of the hands that he was in, and he wasn't in hands that a lot of people knew about. So he bred me Ripper, and sort of Ripper was the best farm dog I've had. He was smart and hard, and yeah, since then I've probably gone a little softer, and as far as not quite as much strength, but so I guess I've always just wanted that dog that could get to a point of control, like I talk about, you know, and not have to do too much about it when it gets there.
Yep.
So if there was something else you could bring into your pack, what would and like why? Like, what do you think they're sort of lacking?
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm actually, and I've got a couple of young dogs that we've spoken about that I want to go to for a bit more strength, and I want to be able to make sure that a dog can bite a cow and a few things that I did have. And these days the dogs will work cattle, but they certainly aren't what I'd say is natural dogs that will bite. And I always say that I think that bite still needs to be a last resort, even on cattle. It's not the first resort. If you go to your big guns first, you've got nothing left after, But I certainly want to try and add that little bit more power. And it's a slow process. You don't want to go too far one way of the centre line or too far the other. You can try and find that good average and try and keep the good things that you have, but improve on them all the time.
Mate, just off the side note there, from Dave Turner, working about strength. Sorry, that question just skipped as they come in. Dave, hey Dave, how you going? How do cattle cross make as sheepdogs? Would they bring that strength in? Do you think? Or
I think, as in cattle dogs, as in collies and things, is it not, or as in not blues, as in collies, border collies, I'm guessing.
I think so.
I think the one thing that you've got to be conscious of is bite, and some of the cattle lines are certainly bred for bite. They're no good without it, so that makes sense. But I think you've got to be really conscious that you don't, bring something in that's going to be sort of contradictory to what you're actually trying to achieve. And bite's one of those things that you want to be very conscious of. So managing that, and it's not just probably more importantly than us managing that. I think it's more importantly that the dog can manage itself around bite, because we can't always look after it, can we? And we can't always stop it from biting. And you can muzzle dogs, you can do things, but I think if they're tending to want to bite, they're not probably thinking about position as much as they should be. So that's probably my thing, is that position first and everything else second. If you're in the right spot, it doesn't matter what you got, you're probably not going to achieve what you should be achieving.
Mate, talking about position there, we've got a question here from Isaac today. What does your training program look like? Well,
it's probably... I'm probably, in all honesty, a lazy trainer. I have got kids running around playing netball and dancing and horsing and doing all these things. So my training regime is very sort of staggered. But what it looks like mainly is that I start on my young dogs on a mob of quiet sheep, usually half a dozen. And I want things under control. The less out of control, the better. And then we work up from there. I get a young dog probably once I get a call on a dog. As soon as I've got a call on a dog, I'm happy to take it to work. And I usually drop that young dog around a gateway somewhere so that I've got stock against a fence. And I can actually hold those sheep against a fence. So that young dog gets to go at balancing to the gate. And then when the sheep go through the gate, I'm in a position to stop that dog and call him to me and put it back on the bike. So, probably, start them off at 3 months, get them to 5 months. Try not to do too much really between that stage from 7 to 8, 9 months. A lot of the time that you think you're going to, train the hell out of this dog, and actually you go backwards more than you go forward. And I come up under Greg Prince, and we all miss Princey. And one thing that he used to say was that if there's more to lose than there is to gain, well, then it's a good time to put it away. So if by whatever we're going to do with that dog today, if there's more to lose than there is to gain from the dog and from me, the dog's better off on the chain for the day or some lead training or dry work. So when you get to that point, it's a matter of identifying that and knowing your dogs and then being able to put it away. And remember that a lot of the time spent in the cage, when you get that pup out, it might be, you might put it away at 7 months. And when I say put it away, it doesn't get left in the cage, but it gets taken out and about and a bit of dry work. You get it back out at 11 months, and that dog will come out and it's ready to go. So they learn a lot from just having a break at times.
You're talking about Princey and one of his quotes there. Mate, there's a certain quote that you drilled into me over the last few months. Do you want to share that with all our listeners tonight?
Yeah, this is the one where I put the trademark on it, is it? So you can't steal it. No, this, like I said,
mate, it's got TM next to it already. I've done it.
I talk about is that you've got me on the spot now. I've got to remember it. Is that dogs don't learn a lot. People, animals, horses, nothing learns a lot while it's tired, but they learn a lot from being tired.
That's the one.
So
mate.
if that makes sense, is that so that at the end of the day, when everyone's had enough, it's not the time to try and prove something to it. When it's tired, it doesn't learn much, but it learns a lot from being tired. So I think that's a really good one that I use, and I'm trying to drill into people.
Yeah, I've never used that to anyone else, I promise.
That's good, mate. I trust you. I think that's really important. And you can apply that to so many levels of the dog. You can apply it to ourselves, our kids, the whole story, can't we? Is that if it's that point, and at that point, it just comes back to Princey's quote, is that there's more to lose than there is to gain. So leave it alone,
No, very true, mate. We've got a few different questions here. We're just trying to work in.
One here from Wayne McMillan. Did you learn anything from horses that could be applied to dogs? Some of the people from the UK he's spoken to years ago talked about the railing method, which was a horse training method. And he's heard that trainers in the US and UK tell him stories that they've learned some valuable lessons from cowboys and horse trainers. So he's just wanting to know if you've found that you've learned anything from horses that could be applied to dogs.
I mean, yes and no. I have, from the point of view that understanding to get that body around, and like I talk, and talk about getting that soft shoulder around and allowing not to be too front on to dogs. So it very much works the same with horses. You don't want to catch a horse, drop your shoulder, drop your eyes. So learning to manage your upper body, yeah, for sure. But I think the two, certainly through repetition, and pressure and release, they're all the same things that we all talk about. But I think the big one is the real big one is it's a little different for like the likes of your cutting horses. And some who maybe your jumping horses, they're actually bred with instinct to jump and bred with instinct to chase a cow and cut. And so from that instinct point of view, that's the big difference from the dog to the horse. The dog has got something in his brain, it's instinct. And once you turn that on, it's usually on. And it's on very strong in the best of the dogs. And there's a little fella up there that's telling that dog something. And at times, it might be contradictory to what the dog wants to do, but that's instinct, isn't it? That's what puts drive in dogs. So it's probably the big difference in my mind. And look, I don't get too complex with those methods. I sort of have my method, and I try to keep it, to a point as simple as it can, so that people can learn it. Because dogs have sort of taken me around the world a little bit now, to the US, and I'd love to go other places, and you get over there and you see people do different things different ways, and you've got to be flexible, I think, as a trainer, to be able to suit a lot of different areas if you're really good at it.
Yeah.
It sort of doesn't exactly answer the question. And I think probably, like I said, the instinct thing is the one big thing. And the other thing, I guess, from a physicality point of view, just quickly, is that a dog's eyes are set forward in his head, and everything is forward to a dog. What's behind them is really irrelevant. It's the past. Whereas that horse or that cow, where actually the eye is set on the side of the head, and you watch the ear flicking all the time, they're actually working the back all the time. And that's why it's important for that dog to be good back there. So a dog is very much thinking forward from that prey type. Is trying to find something, isn't it? And it's trying to work something and dominate something and control something. And from that fact, then it's really important that when we're behind a dog, is that a dog learns to trust us from behind, because their eyes are forward, and for them to turn and look at us, they've got to turn with the head and look at us, and then they take their eyes off the stock. Whereas when I'm behind a cow, for it to look at me, it's simply got to flick its ear out of the way and it can see me. So the physicality of both is very different.
Yeah, so if Laura's my little sister, her mum's my bigger sister. Video on this horse guy not that long ago. Do you remember who that was?
No, I can't remember the name.
It was this. I watched it. It was about an hour thing, and I'm not a real horsey person, but I can appreciate any training. And this particular bloke, he was training this guy, and the guy was having a problem with his horse bolting. And when they were mucking around with this horse, he was toying with it, and the horse on his left eye was getting on. He accepted the guy getting on the horse really good, but whenever the guy come around the right hand side of the horse, the horse was always a bit touchy, and he put that down to because he was so used to being approached from that side. The repetition of it. And he said that cowboys have the best horses because, or especially ropers, because they could get on the horse from either side, and they had the best balanced horses as well.
Yeah.
So I suppose just going there, how much do you think that we put into our dogs because of we might be left-hand orientated or right-hand orientated? That, and I know I just went left and right wrong myself.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's a good point. I know that I feel a lot more comfortable working a dog to that anti-clockwise side in a trial situation. You know, I like working that dog that way on my right side than I do more on my left side. And it's funny, I like to count sheep coming from that. So coming from my right to my left. So I like to count sheep, from my right to left so that I'm counting. You know, it feels more comfortable for me coming past my right shoulder than it does for them coming past my left shoulder. So it's something to be conscious of around your kennels and things too, isn't it? That, you know, we tend to just put a dog in from that one side all the time and be able to be pliable there.
I'm going to laugh there because I'm a little bit anal getting my dogs in and out of my kennels. I
wouldn't have thought
that. I actually step forward. If I'm putting my dogs in my kennels when I feed them and I open my door, I step forward into my kennel so my dog actually comes behind me and doesn't cross me. So that way it gets used to when I'm opening a gate, when I'm trialing, that it comes behind me. Yeah. And even when I'm at home just opening gates or wherever I'm going, I always have that habit. I drill it into these guys a bit because if you can create that habit and repetition, well, and let's be honest, like when we go, if I'm out at your place, dogs are crossing us left, right, and centre. But in that trial situation, a big trip can come a pretty quick day with a couple of crosses. So, that's one thing I do, and I know it's one of my little perks, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that no doubt I used to be a lot more like that than I am now, but I think you just got to be careful too, though, doing some of those things that you don't, that you stay out of your dog's head a little bit, where you don't just get. But I mean, look, I can see the merit in that, mate. And if things work for you, that's a good idea in my mind. If things work for anybody, no matter what dog we're running, I think that's a great idea, and if it's working, keep doing it, be open-minded, but keep doing it. But it's certainly something to be conscious of that we are working that animal on both sides.
To be honest with you, I don't even notice I do it sometimes, and will be over and go, why do you always step forward and you won't let your dog in? It's just a habit now.
It's something with that horse-dog question is that I did a school at Mudgee a couple of years ago, and a young guy came up to me and he loves his horse and does a lot of drafting and was talking about, releasing pressure off a dog. And part of that is being down and getting in dogland, we're all up, I'm 6 foot something and we're all up at our level and we don't tend to get down in their world. And I'm quite big and talk with schools about being able to get down there and get out in their world and spend a bit of time down there and take pressure off that animal. And he was really taken by that. He said, look, he'd done other schools, done quite a few other schools, and he said he'd never really heard it put that way, that because the physicality of a dog is so small to us, we tend to feel like, it can be physical and we can apply pressure all the time. We forget that they're just like us. They get so much out of a pressure release. And the big thing is we all know that with a horse because that's how horses work, pressure and release, exactly how they work. Whereas a dog is more of a mental battle and it also works around pressure and release, but we feel like we don't need to release pressure off a dog as much, I think, because of the physicality of the thing and it's it's a smaller animal, and therefore we can just load it up all the time. So it's something to be very conscious of, is to how we manage our body and how we can release pressure off a dog.
I knew there for a long time, coming from a horse background, that I didn't actually understand how to release that pressure off a dog, because it wasn't, I wasn't sitting on top of the animal. I didn't understand how I released that pressure. But yeah, you telling me to get down with the dog, that's when it sort of clicked in my head that, okay, I can do it that way. Like, yeah.
Well, and it's this front on, and it's our eyes, and we tend to, when our teeth get gritted and something's going wrong, we tend to eyeball them, you know. So it's and look, I do plenty of that myself. You know, I'm not going to come here and say I don't eyeball them and I don't grit my teeth, because I'm managing my temperament all the time, you know. But it's about managing the upper body in a lot of those cases, and we can apply pressure quickly, and we can also take pressure quickly off with that upper body and that front on approach.
So we've just had another question come through from Neno Moody. Dave, you talk about dry work. What does this involve for a young dog?
Well, dry work's any work off stock, I guess, basically. So one of these doesn't have. So we want to have those young puppies. You know, I don't do enough of it running young dogs here, and it's something that I'm doing more of now. But when I've got so many young dogs, but so it's basically doing our work on off stock, on a lead. It's putting that sit and stop and come, all those things that you know, that basic discipline. Is off stock, and some people do put dry sides on off stock, so they actually have them on a string, and I think some of the Kiwis do it that way. I think, you know, the other people a lot more, they would have a lot more of an idea than I do, but I think there are, you know, quite a few methods around that actually train dogs dry. So by that, they actually put sides and things on without stock. So it's basically training with no stock.
You have a couple of videos on your Facebook page of Crew as a young pup doing some dry work, don't you?
Yeah, I did, on a bit of basic stop work and a few things. Yeah. Yep.
Do you think enough merit's being put into having young pups on a leash and just teaching them like a simple come off, or, you know, come, just like how you hear it all the time? Oh, I can't catch the pup, you know. Oh, I go work that dog, but I can't catch it, you know. Or you know, you're speaking to someone and it's, oh, I've got to go. I've been trying to catch this dog for half an hour now. So to me personally, I think doing that stuff is part of building a bond with that young animal to start with.
Yeah, it's part of the connection, isn't it? You know, and it's certainly part of the connection. My situation here, you know, you're 20 plus dogs, and I'm sort of probably more of a breeder than I am a trialer these days. So you can be, if you're not careful, some can slip through the cracks. You don't do enough of that sort of off stock work. And there's no doubt, the more time you spend with them and the more quality time you spend with them, the better they're going to be. You know, it's the same as all these things with all these animals, the kids, the same thing. You know, the more time I spend with them, the better off they're going to be. And it's love and discipline, isn't it? Well, it's like these, you know, our hands deliver love. And I probably sound weird when I say that, but how we touch and how we go about that young dog, you know, how we touch our kids and how we touch that dog is very much delivered through hands. So, you know, dogs love nothing more, do they, than you can do a bit of work on a lead, and you call them in and give them a rub, and then touch just reinforces. You've got to put pressure on, have a dog a little bit uncomfortable on a lead, but then the release of pressure and that touch then takes all that away. And so it's really important that, like I said, get down with them and you know, don't overdo the pat and the rub, but when something's good, let them know. They love that kindness, and that's when you're really going up, when they can feel that kindness coming from you.
Mate, that probably ties in with our next question here from Jacob Ryan.
Is there any mental or psychological activities you do with your dogs on or off stock, as in laying down pups and stuff?
Look, I don't do that, in that I just don't find the time for. And I'm probably lazy with that. You know, I think there's no doubt it works. I think, you know, probably Daniel, you're doing a bit of that, and I think Jake's probably the master. Yep, and Jake is probably the master.
A lot of that the last 3 or 4 months.
Yep. Look, all those things. If look, guys, anything that's working well, dogs will respond to that, and it works. There's enough of these people going around doing it. I just don't. Like I said, I'm probably lazy with those things. I didn't come up with that method. I'm pretty much training a lot of dogs on the job when I get them there, But yeah, the more of those things that you can do, and if you can find someone that's doing that and that can show you those things, go for it. And yeah, I'd embrace all those things.
I've got a pretty low tolerance for barking dogs. Like one thing that absolutely annoys the shit out of me, just dogs barking in the kennel for no reason. If you pick up a hose, my dogs will all get in their box pretty quick. But I have not had to hose a dog kennel, I'd say, in the last 4 or 5 months, since I've been spending more time with my younger dogs on a lead and laying them down and just getting in their head a bit. I can just simply, a possum might stir them or something, and feel them at the moment. And I might just give a quick whistle and a quiet, and that's it. It's off. And I think a few people might have seen recently, I've been teaching my dogs to bark on command at young ages, and there's a video of Faith done that the other day. And my theory behind that is, well, if I can teach them to bark on command, I can teach them to shut it off when I want to as well. So if they know what a bark is, or when to bark, when I want them to bark, they know when I want them to be quiet as well. What's your take on that?
Oh, look, for sure. They understand it, don't they? They're allowed the freedom to bark when you ask for it, and then when you shut them down, they're actually getting rewarded for shutting down. So the difference is that you're not chastising them to keep them quiet. You're actually rewarding them for them being quiet.
Yeah, so I can hose my kennels without.
Yeah, so the difference is it's a different mindset. The rub at the end is actually the reward and the kindness. So they go, oh, this is great. When we be quiet, we get a rub. And so you're actually doing exactly the opposite in a way, aren't you? By actually going about it that way. And the better the connection, like I had Jilly that we lost 18 months ago, and I had an awesome connection with her, and you don't get that with many dogs. I had that with Ripper, the same thing, just knew what I was thinking when we were doing a job. And the more time you get spending with those pups and you get that connection, the better they're going to be. And like I said, they get a reward for doing the right thing, which is being quiet, So it's a complete different mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%, mate.
So there's just another question come through from Naomi White. What do you look for in a pup to work out if it's one to keep or move on, or like not for yourself?
Distance, that X factor, and a lot of the time, temperament and distance. And like I said, I think another little saying I had, Daniel, with you was that the best stock person or stock handler and the best dog can achieve the same result from further back. So by that, I mean, we're still got to be able to do the job, but the pup that shows me that natural distance and that stop, and then that quiet come into sheep and actually trying to work sheep the way sheep want to be worked, not the way that the dog wants to work sheep. All those little things that I'm seeing. I want a pup to be. I want a pup to be quite soft to be around. I don't want a pup that's too hard-headed from that temperament point of view, where the nature, I want their quite nice, quiet nature. And that's basically how he approaches me, a little bit softer. That's what I like. But then the temperament is that drive to work and the trainability. Well, then we're looking for temperament. So if I ask something of that pup and it tries really hard for me, well, then, I'm thinking that I've got good distance. It's going to try hard and it's got a nice approach to sheep. Well, for me, I'm probably 80% on the way. If I know the breeding and it's bred well. Yeah.
Mate, talking about your distance and, way it approaches sheep and that there, we've got a question here from Daniel Lenzo. How has getting a dog to cross helped in real work situations?
It just means that a dog can get to a point of control as quick as it can, and like I said, when you're working goats, it's just got to, you want a dog just to be in a point of control and be there. Otherwise, we might be somewhere else with them, And the other thing that I think allowing dogs to cross is that my system was very much. I used to talk about inviting a dog into this front on my front-on presence. But I want to, and watching some of the Americans and the Europeans, they're doing a lot more driving work. And I'm thinking, if I'm going to go somewhere and give a school, or I'm going to give advice, or I'm trying to even myself as doing things well, I want a system that I know works really well in that situation. So I want to be less important to those dogs behind them, so that they can concentrate on their stock. The last thing I want them to do is be in front of me and then worried about where I am. I want them to be in front of me and worried about their stock. So that's probably the really important part, is that when they're in front of me, they're still watching stock, because if something's going to go, you've got the right. For me, see, my system is that I probably don't have a good enough stop, and then I'm not going to be someone that's going to stop a dog for half an hour and it doesn't leave that spot. I want you to stop when I ask you to stop, but then if you need to go and do your job to get control, well, then you have the right to break that stop and go and do the job. So that's how I approach it, rather than the other. I don't want to tell that dog to have to leave the spot.
Mate, you've spoken about point of control a couple of times there. Do you want to explain, your philosophy on point of control and how you see that?
Yeah, well, it's something that I've sort of been using, and I see it's about a bit, in some of the pages, and that's a good thing, because I think that point of control is not always sort of point of balance. So I think people get probably confused with balance being point of control, but point of control, like leaving a corner or when sheep move off a dog, is actually behind those sheep if we want the sheep to go forward. So basically it's where the dog or the handler's got to be able to achieve a movement. And at times that might be working a wing and a dog being able to drift with the eye and work up and back slowly and hold its distance and allow that eye to walk, like I talk about, coming under pressure, and stock being able to come under pressure, not through pressure. It's a very different concept going through it. But so the dog can just carry that balance up, where the sheep are walking straight and the dog can hold a point. So that point of control might be really forward on a mob. If I get on a mob that's, early on in their running, it's probably quite well forward. The dog's going to have to think further forward. Whereas the further we go and the more tired they get, the further it works to the back and the point of control comes to the back. But so it's important in your training to work stock out of corners. A dog has got to learn not to rush out of a corner, because the point of control, you actually want those sheep to leave the corner. So I want that dog to learn to wait in a corner and trust that stock can leave the corner. It's really important that dogs learn to trust when sheep leave, that they don't have to panic, especially heading type dogs. Otherwise, you never hold them off the head. Yeah.
That's another question that just come through on that topic. Do you think sheep in a mob have a light side and a heavy side depending on the weather and terrain? That is, they will run more freely on one side than another.
Oh, yeah, definitely. No doubt that stock will work into the breeze a lot better, you'll get a mob using lambs that will not walk with a big wind behind them, but you get a wind in front of them and off they go, and you just, like I talk about, you roll a smoke and you work from tree to tree and you just leave them alone. But we had an incident here, or not an incident, we were trying to count some young sheep through a gate about 8 or 2.5 years ago, and we were trying to do it from the left side, and it just wasn't happening. We'd get 10, and then we'd get another 5, and then we'd wait again, we'd get another 5, and we'd want to get 20. And I did say at the time at the station, and I said, why don't we just switch these stock over? All we did was swap them to the other side, the right-hand side of the gate. Flowed through, we counted them through a piece of pie. So stock handling is very much be pliable, be adjustable. If something's not working, have a look around. There might be a gate further up the fence into the breeze that we can use. There might be, rather than muster a paddock anti-clockwise, always muster a paddock here into the wind, because I want to be able to work stock up into the breeze. If I muster downwind, and if I have to leave stock and go and check the rest of the paddock, those sheep will then turn and come back into the breeze. So if I keep working into the breeze, if I have to leave sheep and go somewhere else, my sheep that I've left are always going to work into the breeze. So it's crucial that in bigger paddocks in this country that, we get a southerly and everything's in the south. We get a northerly and everything's in the north. And
sheep don't have big fangs, do they? So their only defence mechanism is being able to sight or smell something, and
That's
working into the breeze, like you'd
Yeah.
assume that they're going to smell something. I know chasing goats myself and other places a while ago, they're like as soon as the mob smelt you, you were gone. You didn't matter how far they were, like you just didn't stand a chance trying to get out there. By the time you got to a gate, they were gone. Which actually brings me to another. Sorry, I'll let you answer that one first.
And the good dogs will actually scent goats really well. You know, like they'll smell a goat, they'll smell a mob, and and I drop them off like a scent dog now and follow them. And yeah, so the good dogs will work the wind as well. They'll smell sheep as well. Joy. Yeah, so they certainly do that.
Here's another one for you, mate. While we're talking about gates and whatnot, why do you guys out west have gates in the middle of a fence line and not in the corners? Wouldn't it be a lot easier to move stock around in corners rather than having a random a gate in the middle of a fence?
No, because you think about a corner. What's a corner? A corner's a point of pressure.
Yeah.
So if stock want to go and lay in a corner, that's fine. But if I've got to drive them into a corner, it's actually a point of pressure. So to actually put stock into a corner is actually driving stock into a point of pressure for me. Whereas, in a breeding operation, I think it's crucial that we train and we educate our females to come under pressure. And once again, not through pressure. I always go forward at a gate and my stock come through me and I'm at the gate. I get off my bike, park my bike, cows or sheep, and I try to be on foot. And lambs are learning to come through. If those dogs weren't there, those sheep would go away from the gate, but they come to the gate because the dogs are holding them to me. As soon as the lead starts, I want the dog to stop. And the lead draws the back. It's like funneling water through a canyon. If the tighter the canyon, the more we get a flow, and the faster we get a flow. Well, as that flows faster, it actually draws water in behind. It's just like moving stock through a gate. As we get a flow and we squeeze that gate, it actually draws heads in from behind us. So we're actually moving the lead to draw the tail. And those calves are learning to handle me on foot. Mum's going through a gate. I get off and, there's nothing worse than going to try and count a mob of cattle or go and look at a mob of cattle and someone hops out of the ute. And everyone says, "Oh, don't get out of the ute, they'll all run away." Well, not if they're used to me on foot. So when I wean cattle, we get out there and I park a bike and I put them on a fence line and I walk them past me, count them up and down the fence line so they're used to me on foot. And they're used to coming through my pressure and they're being rewarded as they go through me by leaving my pressure. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. I was never thought of it like that, mate. I just look at a gate and go, geez, it'll be easy to drive them in the corner and punch them through there.
Yeah, no, see, these old ewes here, we come to a gate, I'll go and open a gate, and these old ewes will start walking to a gate from 300 metres. They'll spot a gate and they just walk to it. And when they do, park the dogs, I'll go and park. As they get to the lead, I just go and be at the gate. As they get there, they drift through and I'm there and they're learning to come through me. The other thing is, if I get a blockage at that gate, well, I'm there to do something about it. If those sheep go through that gate or those cattle go through that gate and go 10 metres and stop, I'm there to actually start that lead. I can't do it from behind. So it's crucial that I'm working the gate all the time in the sheep yards, the same thing. I'm at the front and my dogs are bringing to me. They might come up to me and go back through, but I'm doing the front work.
I just imagine from what you said there, if you're at the back, it's just more pressure. And I know, if we call that a hydraulic lock because nothing's going anywhere.
How do you get to the front if you're at the back?
Correct.
You've got to go past everything, and as you go past everything, they turn around. I mean, you can run a dog up over them for sure and bring them back through, but if I'm already at the front when they start, I don't have to pass any heads to get to the front, do I? If they start while I'm there, those stock can all see me. I'm predictable, and they can then come past me. If I have to come past heads to go to the front, well, they all lay back. You watch what happens when you go to the front of a mob and you turn your shoulder and give them a soft shoulder, then you turn and face up and all their heads rise. You watch a mob, even young weaners or sheep, they all look at you for a second. They might go again. Yeah, so I want to be at the front when they start.
I had something smart to say there, mate, but I'll keep my tongue to myself. Or throwing my head up looking at you. Go, you sure you're not just looking at your head, mate? Yeah, what's going on there?
They could be looking at this far. That's what I said to a mate in Western Australia today. I got a good head for radio.
So there's just been another question come through with what we mentioned earlier about not letting a dog beat the head for too long and pushing it with how it was with it. How has this benefited your dog's development in real work? Not letting them beat the head for too long.
Well, with a heading dog, they want to be there, and it's not efficient having a dog. I mean, some of the Brahman cattle and some of these sheep are actually taught, with lead dogs, and that a dog will actually trail out and lead, and it gives them something to follow. But for a lot of the European sheep, a lot of what most people do, the more touchy the stock, the less time I want to spend on the head, basically. I need to be there, get control and get out of there, and then be there and get. So it becomes a timing thing, But I don't want to be over controlling there, because you've got those animals that are trying to go somewhere. So we want to allow them to go somewhere. We don't want to shut them down too much. And, those dogs have got to learn to relax on the tail. I talk about that back V. And that's why I use a stick sometimes to be able to demonstrate that to people. And a dog's going to spend 90% of its time within that back V. So they've got to learn to be able to be back there and relax back there. And stock, sheep especially, not so much cattle, but sheep have got to really learn to trust the dog behind them. If you're standing behind me with a great stick and you belt me in the ear, there's a good chance I'm going to want to turn around and look at you. And what's one of the basic fundamentals of the low stress guys is that animals move in the direction they're facing. So if I want a sheep to be going away from me, I don't want to be belting him in the ear too often with a stick, because I want it to forward. It's like loading a horse in a horse float. The last thing I want to do is have someone up behind him with a great stick. I want him thinking forward, not behind. That's where his mind is. Same.
When you're training, you use shepherd's crooks too, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. The yellow crooks. They come from Princey, They're really well weighted. They're something that I can hang on a rail and leave them there. I just find that not everybody's for the method of using a stick, but they are very well weighted, and you can pretty much land them where you want. You can also, when you use the tool, you can clap them together and make a bit of noise, just a little bit similar to the whip sort of method and things. And, you want to be careful about applying pressure, because you've got to remember to release what you apply. But certainly they are very good. I'd recommend anyone to grab some of those if they can. I took a couple in my bag to America and left them over there with Billy Boy. So there's, there was a bit of a donation for him.
I might have baited you there, mate. They're actually available now through the Australian Working Stock Dog magazine. So if in our merchandise page there, mate, just jump on board. We've got a few for you.
There's no doubt about you. I'll have to get on and buy a few more.
But I thought I'd drop it. Mate, Rob Clarkson has asked, can you teach a dog to work out of sight in hilly, steep country, or is this just in the drive of the dog not to give up and leave his stock?
Yeah, I think if you're a really good trainer and you want to spend hours, you look at the Kiwis, they're probably, and some of the people in Europe and what the England and things there, they're probably working dogs in those situations pretty regularly, and that's through training. I think that certainly, I used to work a lot of steep country at the back of Coolah there in the tops, and the really good dogs that have driven that. But once again, it comes down to, in that situation, a dog work, like I talk about a little bit, a dog being able to work stock the way stock want to be worked, not the way the dog wants to be worked. Because when it's out of sight, it comes down to distance, natural ability, the dog being polite to a point. You're still going to be able to get a job done. But if you're impolite, you're too pushy, well, there's no way any of us can correct it, So it's really important that animal has distance. And like I talk about, that it actually is trying to work stock from their point of view, not the dog's point of view, if that makes sense. Yeah,
no, it does, mate. Got another one here from Bob Kerfoot. How have you incorporated it?
How do you train a young dog to walk on the stock?
As in a walk up?
Yeah.
So a couple of methods. Once again, look, this is all comes back to Princey's method, and really, like a lot of us are sharing what he's developed, and so a lot of what I do to start with is in the race, is in a sheep race. And so I put that walk up, so we'll get a few sheep in there, and I get in there with him, and it's on a lead, so it's controlled. We just basically walk it in, give it a rub when it's in close. Can also do the same thing in a corner. If you haven't got a race, you can put them in a corner. The problem within a corner, that is, if your sheep can get away. So the other way you could do it's possibly, have a few sheep in a little pen in a corner, and we start out wide. We have our dog beside us, and that dog learns to walk in on a line. It's pretty important that if you're going to teach your dog to walk up, that it walks up on a line, because there's no point in me trying to come in on a sheep. The dog wants to come in there and actually fades off pressure. So what a lot of dogs will do if they don't have that strength, they'll actually come into a point, and then the eyes start looking for somewhere to go because they're fading off pressure. So when you do that, try and make it straight so that dog comes straight in. When it gets in close, make it comfortable. To start with, try not, if your dog's a little weak and you're trying to build it up and build confidence, just come into the point where you can start to feel that dog lay back on the lead and feeling the pressure. Give it a rub. You might drop down, get in dog land again, drop down there, give it a rub and make it comfortable. And then start again, take him back out and start again. Same thing in the sheep race. So in and out. And when the dog's ready, you basically do the walk up and the out at once. So the walk up is taught, and then with the rake and the string, you can actually teach your dog to back off. But the out is probably a dangerous move for probably 90%, 95% of people, because a lot of the time it's probably done at the wrong time and in the wrong way, and it can confuse dogs. And most dogs don't enjoy walking backwards.
Yeah, and I think, and just keeping a dog, especially a young dog, out to start with, like a lot of people look at myself and they go, why do you let your dog work so close to sheep? I go, because personally, if you have a young dog and you're always pushing it out, how can you ask it to come in later? Like, it's got to be comfortable. For my own personal thing, I like to have my dogs comfortable working inside close and then push them out, rather than pushing them out and then asking them to come in later.
Yeah, look, it's dangerous not to be able to let a dog be comfortable in tight, and that's, I've got Crewy at the moment. It's something I'm working on with him. He's got a lot of stuff I like, but he's just got to learn his approach to be better, and that's a slow process. A lot of these three sheep guys do that 200 or 300 times before they get it right. They'll literally do it, every second day for a year and a half till they get that dog comfortable coming in, and they know. And that's why I have that dog beside you to start with. You come in, because I want to learn that dog's got to learn to trust me. I want it to learn to trust me. So as it comes in, I'm coming in with it. So I'm there with it, and the dog is actually feeling me, and the whole time, good dog, soft tone. All these things are all working into its mind to make it comfortable with me with a nice, kind tone.
Yeah. So Jacob Ryan is asking, what were some other really good things you took away from Princey, and how have you incorporated them into your own program, and why?
Look, it was funny. We were sitting at the Ningen trial when we had the 3 sheep trial years ago with Gary, and I said, it's funny watching Greg. I learned more watching him walk his dog around the arena to have another run than I do watching him on the ground, because his dogs just loved him, like he was God to his dogs. And I battle with that because of my temperament, and I used to say the same, just to talk to him about that. He used to tell me to keep on smiling, and that was his way of trying to make it better. But the beauty about Greg was he kept it pretty simple. And we talk about language around, for us it's sides, for some of the Europeans and the Americans it's flanking commands and things. And I like to think of it as steering. So, and when I'm doing schools, you can hold your hands out so you can see it like you got them on a steering wheel. And it doesn't matter which way you're facing. A lot of people, when they put it on, they'll forget their command. So whenever we're steering to my left, that's my back. So it doesn't matter whether the dog's behind me or in front of me. If I hold my hand, you want to think about which way that dog's got to go with your command. Tip your hands that way like you're steering a car, and it's the direction it's got to go. A lot of people get confused. Should I go left? Which way am I going? Well, hold your hands upright. If I steer that way, that's the way the dog's going to go, whether it's facing me or not facing me, or whether I'm facing it or not. So Greg, yeah, like I said, Greg was just, he loved dogs, you know, he genuinely loved dogs. And I wish I could love dogs as much as Greg would, but I never will. It's not part of me, you know. And but so that's I probably haven't answered the question exactly, but he was a pro, you know. The thing about Princey is that he wouldn't go on a ground if he didn't know he could do it, and that's the big thing. A lot of us go out there half cocked. Greg wouldn't do that. If he went out there, he knew he could do it, and he mightn't be able to do it today, and he'd walk off, but I guarantee the next time he come out, he could, you know, and that's what he was. He was a pro.
Mate, you mentioned a bit about training there. Like, how often do you hold your working days, your working dog schools, and what do you personally get out of it?
Oh, look, I'm probably only doing, 3 or 4 a year. I do all the Edge Labra work with the Jackaroos, which I find really rewarding. You know, I've done that for a long time. I've still got a big affiliation with Cam, the general manager at Edge Labra, and seeing the young guys come through is pretty awesome. They look up to me and they love their dog stock days. You don't do a school without learning. I love helping people, and I hate talking myself up, I guess, but I hope I'm quite good as an educator in that role. Laura can answer that for me. She's been there, but I think some people can probably help people. Some people can work dogs and not train people, and some people can train. And yeah, I don't do a school without learning something, taking something away every weekend, and it's really motivating to see somebody get something. And like I spoke to Jan Prince about this, I talked to her a little bit, and she said Greg did it. He wanted a better life for dogs, and I guess that's fundamentally, hopefully, why a lot of us do it. We want a better life for dogs and a better life for people that are trying to achieve something. And I try to incorporate a lot into what we've spoken about tonight, into that concept of, stock handling.
Yep.
So is there anything you'd like to see in the way people handle dogs in Australia? Like, where do you think we can improve?
I don't really know. I guess probably the best way is probably Jakey's on track. Jake Nolan with his method in being in New Zealand, and really, like you've spoken about, Daniel, to see that the benefit of getting in their mind and working along that way, and less physicality. Those days are gone where we need to be overly physical. And yeah, it's got to be a mind game. Yeah.
What about on a side note of that, mate? Like stock handling versus dog training.
Yeah, look, for me, it's stock first. That's what we're doing, aren't we? We're hopefully we're all working dogs, but we're working stock. And there's no point you having the best trained dog in the world if you don't know where to put it. There's also no point in you knowing exactly where to put it if you can't put it somewhere. So one goes with the other. But for me, you can have the best, and I think there's probably a couple of young fellas that are right on the edge of, that can really train a dog, that have probably softened from the stock point of view, that are really thinking about their stock handling and just doing enough. Like the secret to good stock handling is just do enough, get a result and leave it alone. And that's what makes stock good. That's what makes dogs good, what makes horses good. Get the result and leave it alone, and don't keep, be able to take pressure off. So for me, I look after a breeding operation here. You've got a heap of sheep for someone else, and that's my priority. And like dogs are a massive part of it. I can't do it without dogs, but without the stock and without good stock, but good dogs make good stock, it all ties in, doesn't it?
Yeah. And we've got a question here from Kim Wilkie. At what stage in your training program did you introduce a whistle? Is this age related or ability related? And what commands do you put on a whistle if you use it?
No, I use, then I've got my voice whistle. I don't use well, I shouldn't be, you guys are the best whistles in the West, haven't you? Edit. Yeah, here we are. So, but in all honesty, they're that's why you're trying to sell. That's why you're selling, because they are certainly, the beauty of those is that it's a more digital sound, right? And the more digital we can make the sound, my whistle can have variation, whereas those whistles, it can be a perfect sound, can't it? So, but early on, voice command, whistle command, side command for me is back. It's the same thing with the behind command. It's both at the same time. I don't want to spend hours teaching him my voice command and then teaching my whistle command. So then we've got to test that though. I might work them off the voice command a few times, and then I'll stop that, and then I'll put the voice away, and then I'll try my whistle command. So the whole time we're testing it. So we're working one and we're working the other, and a lot of the time I'm in close, I'm working voice, and at distance you're working. But I would suggest that you don't try to make that too complicated. I think that there's no reason why you can't incorporate them both pretty much at the same time.
A bit earlier you talked to, sorry, I was just a bit earlier, you mentioned about your own temperament and you think that restricts you a bit at training. Do you find that when you're ramping up a bit, you go to a whistle voice command to try and get
I think
pressure back off the ball?
Well, I think it's important because the whistle doesn't come with tone, does it? And that's the beauty of whistle. So that's the one thing to be managing, is that, no can be no, or it can be no, so it can be really big around that, whereas a whistle doesn't come with those same tones, so it tends to not carry as much emotion, And for me, the best trainers have the least emotion to a point, not saying some really good trainers aren't emotional, but I think the one that dogs don't understand emotion. They don't understand why one day we're happy and why one day we're sad. It means nothing to them. So we've got to really
They just know that we're sad or we're happy.
Yeah, they feel that, but they don't understand emotion. They don't understand why Dave's off his chops now and then 10 minutes later he's all happy again. To them, that shuts them down. It takes work out of them. So managing emotion is really important. And like I said, I think the ones that are probably the best at it probably manage their emotions the best. Not saying they don't have emotion, but they certainly manage it the best, especially under pressure. We're all good when nothing's happening, but when we're loaded, that's when it comes out, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Mate, the way Jackie looks after you up there, mate, you'd have to be a good emotion all the time. I've seen what
I'm fat and shiny.
What else we got here, Laura? Dave, you don't do a lot of trialling. Well, do you have a favourite trial, and why would that be?
Oh, look, I guess, our local trial is probably my favourite from the point of view that they're sheep that I'm used to working in. I think they test a natural dog, I think they're quite runny sheep, and they test whether a dog can find that point of control, and the one that can't quite get there is usually showed up, somewhere along the line. But probably my biggest trial memory is, I did pretty well with Russell 2013 at the National, but then I had Jilly, who was my favourite, and I'd probably been on the ground once with her. I got to Carcoar and got to the pen. I think I'd done one trial in about 3 years with the drought, and I wasn't brave enough to let her put him in the pen, and she had him there, and 89 would have been, I think, second or third into the final and right up there, and she was awesome. So that's probably, because I don't have her, that's probably my favourite memory. I just, timing's a big thing, isn't it? And I wasn't doing enough trials. It's like playing cricket or footy. We can all hit a ball in the nets or train as hard as we like, but until we're under the pressure in the game moment, we need game practice, don't we? So that's probably my favourite memories. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, mate. I think Laura's got a question here.
No, it's all right.
Okay, cool.
Is there one trophy or accolade that you would like to win and have it on your mantelpiece, or have you already won that one?
Oh, I've won them all.
Not the ones at home, mate. No, we're talking about the ones around the ground.
Look, I'm not driven by that, to be honest. Like I speak about, I guess I'm probably, I would rather breed 10 dogs that win nationals than I would win 10 nationals myself. I probably find that a lot of the time I see that winning probably doesn't do people a lot of good with it from that human factor. I think that probably ribbons create monsters. You see that in Pony Club, Laura, don't you? I used to joke about it all the time, and I think
That
it's
doesn't
probably
stop from having all the ribbons hanging around here, though.
Yeah, that's right. And there's nothing like winning. We all love to win. There's no doubt about that. But I'm not motivated by that. I had 8 dogs out of 16 dogs in the final in the 2016 National here. A lot of them went back to Russell, but there was 8 dogs that I'd either bred or were out of one of my bitches in the finals at the Nationals. I think that's probably my biggest accolade is doing that, because I think that'd be a big achievement to do again from anybody, And a lot of that was on the back of Russell. I got to give him credit for that. But yeah, for me, that's probably where what I get the most pleasure out of.
Smash it, mate. Mate, where do you believe is Dog Talk spot in our community, and where can we help our members?
Oh, look, it's providing them an awesome service, isn't it? That there's a lot of people out there learning from this. Let's educate as many people as we can. Let's make stock better and let's make dogs better, And yeah, I hope that this, gets bigger and bigger for you guys. I've had quite a bit to do with it coming up with you in discussion, and I'm really excited for you. And hopefully at some point it becomes quite a commercial venture, and I'd hope that people support it with some training vids of both stock handling and training dogs, how you go down that path. We'll have to see where it goes. But yeah, look, I think that anything that gives people a voice and lets young and old, enjoy people and get to meet people. There's people that I won't meet overseas that get to interact with me, and I get to interact with other people in the same way, just as Jamie was on last week, and so I think that, yeah, that's pretty awesome.
You just touched on another thing there on training and helping people, and we've got a stack of questions that have come through tonight, so I'd like to thank all our viewers, but we are mindful as well that, we've taken up a lot of everyone's time. But Laura, do you want to ask that question there?
We've just had a question. Do you think people are overdoing it with whistle commands? And do you think that training in such a way takes away from the instinct?
That's from Randall Finchman.
Oh, look, you listen to Bernard McGlashan when I had the pleasure of watching him work a dog in Tassie in, 2008 or 9. It was awesome. I was blown away. I was confused, but the dog did everything he asked, and I don't know that I don't want to be that complex, but I'm not going to judge anyone on something that works. I think it can be too complex for sure, but if people get results, well, I'm not going to argue with anyone that gets good results. So yeah, I think it's just keep it simple, stupid, isn't it? And if I ask you to move left and you move left, if I ask you to move out and you move out or move in, well, that's enough for me. And how people want to do that, that's up to them, I guess. But keep it as simple as possible. For 99.9% of people that are probably going to go on a ground or going to handle stock, a good left, a good right, and a stop with a dog that's of reasonable ability is probably going to do most people.
Yeah, no, 100%, mate. If there's one person you want to see us sit down and do a Q&A with, who would that be and why?
Well, I'll have a bit of a think about this. If I say a few, probably one that really comes to mind is Jimmy Loose, or as I call him, Big Loose Jim. But no, Jimmy Loose, he's been there, done that. I haven't spoken to him for maybe 12 months, but he's won everything there is to win. He's been across all breeds. He's handled stock. He's 3 sheep. He was start of the yard. He's bred dogs, and I think Jimmy's a really interesting character. I love having a yarn to him. Another one probably then is Johnny Roston, who's a collie man who's got an incredible mind. I love the way John thinks. I always remember he judged the National in Queensland, and there was a question asked going into the yard, and 99% of judges would have just answered the question, but he wasn't quite sure how he wanted to answer it. And he just said, just give me a couple of minutes to think about that. And we went through the yards, and when we walked back out, he'd made up his mind. So, you know, that for me is a really, I like the way his thought process is. And from an emotional point of view, I'd love you to be able to get Jan Prince, because I love Princey's message, to be out there, and she's an awesome lady. And I also think, you know, Jan and Johnny White together, I think it'd be a wonderful chat across the table. Yeah. And maybe you guys can do that live somewhere and actually go to them. But I think that, yeah, they'd have some awesome stories to tell about Johnny. He's a great man, Johnny White. He loves dogs, and he would interact really well with Jan. And yeah, that would be, you know, from tugs at the heartstrings, that'd be the story I'd love to hear, you know, from that point of view. Yep.
Know anywhere we could stay out that way?
Oh, I know a few places. I'll have a yarn to a few people for you.
Yeah, that's all right, mate. Just find the roughest place you can find for me.
Yeah, I'll find a ball bath.
No, mate. Obviously, there's some pretty respected names that you just threw up there. So it'd be fantastic to be able to get out and speak to some of those people if they'll have us. If any of them are listening, or someone out there is listening tonight that knows these people personally, and they'd be happy to give us some time, Laura and I are happy to put on the case. Whether that's through phone or be there traveling sitting in their lounge room. We're COVID jabbed, so you know that's all cool.
No doubt about it.
Oh, I'll have a go, mate.
You've obviously spoken about a lot tonight, and I know you've still got a lot more to give. Would you be interested in coming back on again one day soon?
Oh, look, you know, if people are interested and you guys are willing, you know, I'm more than happy to get on and do my bit. Yeah, I think that the more support, the better. And I think, you know, yeah, if the people are happy, we'll let the people be the judge, I guess, and go from there, you know. Yeah.
All right, cool, mate. Well, we're getting to the pointy end of the night, mate. I hope you had your judging hat on there today. I couldn't hear a sheep clicker, so mate. Mate, time to give away a bag of Enduro Plus working dog food. Must be in Australia, so I think it'll be pretty hard to send the drone overseas at the moment.
Yeah.
What's the verdict?
Well, I guess Jacob Ryan asked a couple of questions, didn't he? And a couple of pretty good questions. So it was probably out of here, Nano, with the dry work question. But I guess I'll probably have to give Jake a run.
Geez, that would be a third of his body weight in the bag of feed right there.
I make no comment there.
Jacob, if you just mind messaging the page just so we could get that sent off to you, that'd be great. We'd like to thank you, Dave, for jumping on and having a chat with us tonight. I have one last question. If you had to choose between fighting 20 ducks the size of horses or one horse the size of a duck, what would you choose?
Well, I've had a little think about this, and me being me and needing a challenge, I think I need to fight the 20 ducks the size of a horse just to be different.
Well, you got a bit of leg under you there, mate, so you'll be able to get a few of those good karate kicks happening. I could just imagine that.
I if you ask my wife about the horse that takes on a challenge, she'll understand why I picked that one, because I seem to my brother always used to say that I always seem to get the out of control dogs, kids and horses. So yeah, there we are.
My sister would totally agree.
Before we sign off again, I'm just going to mention once again, you know, the Black Dog Institute, our 1 Foot Forward, I think it's called. Get on board our page. Like I said, if you
can join the team or donate, up to you.
Yeah, whatever. Like, donate with your pockets or your feet, either or. And if you're joining our team, maybe keep spreading it around to your friends and get them on board. Like, the more the merrier. It's for a great cause. Something that we seem to be very passionate about within the working dog community is mental health. So let's get on board with that. And on that note, please remember, we learn every day, and the day we stop learning will be a sad one for all of us. Thank you and have a good night.